Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Chapter 1. Rajovacha Priyavrto Bhagavata Atma Ramah Katam Mune Gruhe Ramata Yanmulaha Karma Bandhav Parabhavaha. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, O great sage, why did King Priyavrata, who was a great self realized devotee of the Lord, remain in household life, which is the root cause of the bondage of karma, fruitive activities, and which defeats the mission of human life? ननूनं मुक्तसङ्गानां तादृशानां द्विजर्षभ गृहेष्वभिनिवेशोऽयं पुंसां भवितुमर्हति. Devotees are certainly liberated persons. Therefore, O greatest of the Brahmanas, they cannot possibly be absorbed in family affairs. Mahatam kalu viprershe uttamashlokapaadayoho chaya nirvrutachittanam na kutumbe spruhamatihi. Elevated Mahatmas who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are fully satiated by the shade of those lotus feet. Their consciousness cannot possibly become attached to family members. Samshayoyam mahan brahman dharagarasutadishu saktasya yad siddhirad sattasya yad siddhirabhut krishne cha matirachyuta. The king continued, O great Brahmana, this is my great doubt. How was it possible for a person like King Priyavrata, who was so attached to wife, children, and home, to achieve the topmost infallible perfection in Krishna consciousness? Shri Shuka Uvacha Bādamuktam Bhagavata Uttamashlokasya Srimaccharanaravinda Makarandarasa Aveshita Chetaso Bhagavata Paramahamsa Daita Katam Kinchidantaraya Vihatam Swam Shivatamam Padavim na prayena hinvanti. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, what you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired. Yarhi vavaharajan sarajaputraha Priyavratah paramabhagavato naradasya charanopasevayanja paramartha satatvo brahmasatrena dikshishyamano वनीलतपरिपालनायां नाथ प्रवरगुणगणैकान्तभाजनतया स्वपित्रोपामन्त्रितो भगवती वासुदेव एवाव्यवधान समाधि योगेन समावेशित सकल कारक कारकक्रिया कलापो नैवाभ्यनन्ददपि तदप्रत्याम्नातव्य तदधिकरण आत्मनोऽन्यस्माद् सतोऽपि पराभव manvikshyamanah. Sukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he sought the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert his attention to anything else. Prince's father then asked him to take charge of the ruling of the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing Bhakti Yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. Therefore, although the order of his father could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus he very conscientiously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling over the world. अतः भगवानादिदेव एतस्य गुणविसर्गस्य परिबृंहणानुध्याननव्यवसित सकलजगदभिप्राय आत्मयोनिरखिल निगम निजगण परिवेष्टितः स्वभवना Davatara. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, The first created being and most powerful demigod in this universe is Lord Brahma, who is always responsible for developing universal affairs. Born directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he dictates his activities to the welfare of the entire universe, for he knows the purpose of the universal creation. This supremely powerful Lord, Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the highest planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. Satatra tatra gaganatala udupatiriva vimanavali mamara pari वृडैरभिपूज्यमानः पतिपति च वरूतशः सिद्धगन्धर्वसाध्यचरणमुनिगणैरुपगीयमानो गन्धमादनद्रोणीमवभासयन्नुपससर्प. As Lord Brahma descended on his carrier, the great swan, all the descendants of the planets named Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Sadhyaloka, and Charanaloka as well as the great sages and demigods flying in their different airplanes, assembled within the canopy of the sky to receive Lord Brahma and worship him, as he received respect and adoration from the residents of the various planets. Lord Brahma appeared just like a full moon surrounded by illusionary stars. Lord Brahma's great swan then arrived at the border of Gandamadana hill and approached Prince Priyavrata, who was sitting there. तत्र हावायेनं देवर्षिर्हसयानेन पितरं भगवन्तं हिरण्यगर्भमुपलभमानः सहसैवोत्तायार्हणेन सह पिता पुत्राभ्यामवहिताञ्जलिरुपतस्ते. Lord Brahma, the father of Narada Muni, is the supreme person within this universe. As soon as Narada saw the great swan, he could understand that Lord Brahma had arrived. Therefore, he immediately stood up along with Swayambhuva Manu and his son Priyavrata, whom Narada was instructing. Then they folded their hands and began to worship Lord Brahma with great respect. Bhagavanapi Bharata tadupanītarhaṇah muktavākena titaramudhita gunaganavatara srujaya priyavratamadi purushastam Sadayaha savaloka iti hovacha. My dear King Parikshit, because Lord Brahma had finally descended from Satyaloka to Bhuloka, Narada Muni, Prince Priyavrata and Swayambhuva Manu came forward to offer him objects of worship and to praise him in highly qualified language according to Vedic etiquette. At that time, Lord Brahma, the original person of this universe, felt compassion for Priyavrata and looking upon him with a smiling face, spoke to him as follows. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Nibhodhyatate damrutam bravimi sa masuyitum devama Maharsya Prameyam Vayam Bhavante Tata Esha Maharshir Vahama Sarve Vivashayasya Dhishtam. Lord Brahma, the Supreme Person within this universe, said, My dear Priyavrata, kindly hear attentively what I shall say to you. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord, who is beyond our experimental measurements. All of us, including Lord Shiva, your father, and the great sage Maharshi Narada, must carry out the order of the Supreme. We cannot deviate from his order. Natasya kaschit tapasa vidyaya va na yoga viryena manishaya va naivartha dharmaih paratah svato va krutam vihantum tadu bruddhi bhuyat. One cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities as exalted Vedic education or the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities, nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, and any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being from Brahma down to the ant. Bhavaya nashaya cha karma kartum shokaya mohaya sada bhayaya सुखाय दुःखाय च देहयोगम् अव्यक्तदिष्टं जनताङ्गदत्ते. My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of fortune, dangers, and happiness and distress. यद्वाचेतन्त्यां गुणकर्मधामभिः सुदुस्तर सुधुस्तयैर्वत्स वयं सुयोजिताः सर्वे वहामो बिलमीश्वराय प्रो प्रोतानसी प्रोतानसीव द्विपदे चतुष्पदः. My dear boy, all of us are bound by Vedic injunctions to the divisions of Varnashrama according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varnashrama Dharma like the bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver pulling on ropes knotted to their noses. ईशाभिसृष्टं ह्यवरुन्ध्महेङ्गं दुःखं सुखं वा गुणकर्मसङ्गात् आस्ताय तत्तद्धदयुङ्क्तनाथश्चक्षुष्मतान्धा इव नीयमानाः. My dear Priyavrata, according to our association with different modes of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives us our specific bodies and the happiness and distress we achieve. One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see. मुक्तोऽपि तावद्बिभ्रूयात्खदेहम् आरब्धमाश्नन्नभिमानशून्यः यतानुभूतं प्रतियातनिद्रः किं त्वन्यदेहाय गुणान् वृङ्क्ते. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to the karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. भयं प्रमत्तस्य वनेष्वपि स्याद् यतः स आस्ते सह षट्सपन्तः जितेन्द्रियस्यात्मरतेर्बुधस्य गृहाश्रमः किं नु करोत्यवध्यम्. Even if he goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-wives, the mind and knowledge acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied learned man who has conquered his senses. Yashat sapatnan विजिगीपमाणो गृहेषु निर्विश्य यतेत पूर्वम् अत्येति दुर्गाश्रित ऊर्जितारीन् क्षीणेषु कामं विचरेद्विपश्चित्. One who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and 5 senses is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. After one has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have decreased, he can move anywhere without danger. Tvam त्वब्जमानां त्वं त्वब्जनाभाङ्घ्रिसरोजकोषदुर्गाश्रितो निर्जितषट्सपन्तः सपत्नः सपत्नः भुङ्क्ष्वेव भोगान् पुरुषातिधिष्ठान् विमुक्तसङ्गः prakritim bhajasva. Lord Brahma continued, My dear Priyavrata, seek shelter inside the opening in the lotus of the feet of the Lord, whose navel is always like a lotus. Thus acquire the 6 sense organs, the mind and knowledge, acquiring senses. Accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do it. You will thus always be liberated from material association and be able to carry out the Lord's orders in your constitutional position. Shri Shuka Uvacha iti samabhihito Mahabhagavato Bhagavatasri स्त्रिभुवनगुणे भगवतस्त्रिभुवनगुरोरनुशासनमात्मनो लघुतया वनतशिरोधरो बाडमिति सबहुमानमुवाह. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, After thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the 3 worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Bhagavanapi manuna yatavadhupa kalpitapachitihi Priyavrata Narada Yoravisha Mama Bhisamikshamana Yoratma Samavasthana Mavang Manasam Kshayamavyavahrutam Pravartayan Naghamata. Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavrata and Narada also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Having engaged Priyavrata in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode, Satyaloka, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane mind or words. Manurapi parenaivam pratisandhita manoratah surarshi varanu matenatmaja makhila dhara mandalasthiti guptaya astapya swayamati Vishamavishaya Vishajalashayashaya Upararama. Swayambhuva Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. With the permission of the great sage Narada, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility of maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous poisonous ocean of material desires. Iti havavasa jagati patirishware chayadhi niveshita karmadikaro kila jagadbandha dvamsana paranubhavasya bhagavata आदिपुरुषस्याङ्घ्रियुगलान् वरतद्यानानुभावेन परिरन्धित कषायाशयोवधातोऽपि मानवर्धनो महतां महीतलमनुशशास. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaja Priyavrata fully engaged in worldly affairs, yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord, which was the cause of liberation from all material attachment. Although Priyavrata Maharaja was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. अत च दुहितरं प्रजापतेर्विश्वकर्मणा उपयेमे बर्हिष्मतीं नाम तस्यामुह वाव आत्मजानात्मसमानशीलगुणकर्मरूपवीर्योधारान्धश भावयां बभूव कन्यां च यवीय सीमूर्जस्वतीं नाम. Thereafter, Maharaja Priyavrata married Barhishmati, the daughter of Prajapati Vishwakarma. In her he begot 10 sons equal to him in beauty, character, magnanimity, and other qualities. He also begot a daughter, the youngest of all, named Urjaswati. Agnirgredmajihkva yajnabahu mahavir hiranyareto ghruta savana medhatithi vitihotra kavaya iti sarva evagni namanaha. The 10 sons of Maharaja Priyavrata were named Agnidhara, Ijmajihva, Yajnabahu, Mahavira, Hiranyareta, Ghrutaprushta, Savana, Medatithi, Vitihotra, and Kavi. These are also names of Agni, the fire god. Etesham kavirmahavirah savana iti traya asan nurdvaretasasta atmavidyayamarbha bhavadharabhya krutaparichaya Paramahamsyamevashra mama bhajan. 3 among these 10, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana, lived in complete celibacy. Thus, trained in brahmachari life from the beginning of childhood, they were very conversant with the highest perfection known as Paramahamsa Ashrama. तस्मिन्नुहवा उपशमशीलाः परमर्षयः सकलजीवनिकायावासस्य भगवतो वासुदेवस्य भीतानां शरणभूतस्य विगलितपरमभक्तियोगानुभावेन परिभावितान्तर्हृदयाधिगते भगवती सर्वेषां भूतानामात्मभूते प्रत्यगात्मन्येवात्मनस्तादात्म्यमविशेषेण samiyuhu. Thus situated in the renounced order from the beginning of their lives, all 3 of them completely controlled the activities of their senses and thus became great saints. They concentrated their minds upon the always upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the resting place of the totality of living entities and who is therefore celebrated as Vasudeva. Lord Vasudeva is the only shelter of those who are actually afraid of material existence. By constantly thinking of his lotus feet, these three sons of Maharaja Priyavrata became advanced in pure devotional service. By the prowess of their devotional service, they could directly perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as a supersoul, and realize that there was qualitatively no difference between themselves and him. Anyan Anyasyaamapi Jayayam Trayah Putra Asannuttamastamaso Ravati iti Manvantaradhipatayah. In this in his other wife, Maharaja Priyavrata begot three sons named Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. All of them took charge of Manvantara millenniums. एवमुपाशमयनेषु स्वतनयेष्वत जगतीपतिर्जगतीमभूदान्येकदश परिवत्सराणामव्याहता किल पुरुषकार सार संभृत दोर्दण्ड युगलापीडित गुणास्तनित तनित विरमित मित धर्म प्रति पशो बर्हिष्मत्याश्चानुधी न मेध्यमान प्रमोद प्रसरणयोर्षिण्य व्रीडा प्रमुषित हासावलोक रुचिरक्ष्वेल्याधिभिः पराभूयमान विवेक इवानव बुध्यमान इव महामना भुभुजे. After Kavi, Mahavira and Savana were completely trained in the Paramahamsa stage of life. Maharaja Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 Arbhudas of years. Whenever he was determined to fix his arrow upon his bowstring with his two powerful arms, all opulence of the regulative principles of the religious life would flee from his presence in fear of unparalleled prowess he displayed in ruling the universe. He greatly loved his wife Barhishmati, and in the increase of days, their exchange of nuptial love also increased. By her feminine behavior, she dressed herself, walked, got up, smiled, laughed, and glanced about. Queen Barhishmati increased his energy. Thus, although he was a great soul, he appeared lost in the feminine conduct of his life. He behaved with her just like an ordinary man, but actually he was a great soul. Yavadavabhasa yati suragiri manuparikraman Bhagavan Adityo Vasudhatala Mardenaiva Pratapartyedhenavachadhayati Dadahi भगवदुप भगवदुपासनो परि पति पचिताति पुरुष प्रभावस्तद नभिनन्दत समजवेन रतेन ज्योतिर्मयेन रजनीमपि दिनं करिष्यामीति सप्तकृत्वस्तरणिम नृपर्यक्रमद् द्विजीय इव patangah. While so excellently running the universe, King Priyavrata once became dissatisfied with the circumambulation of the most powerful sun god. Encircling Sumera hill on his chariot, the sun god illuminates all the surrounding planetary systems. However, when the sun is on the northern side of the hill, the south receives less light, and when the sun is in the south, the north receives less. King Priyavrata disliked this situation and therefore decided to make daylight in the part of the universe where, where there was night. He followed the orbit of the sun's god on a brilliant chariot and thus fulfilled his desire. He could perform such wonderful activities because of the power he had achieved by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Eva uha tadratha charananemi krita parikhathaste sapta sindhava asan yata eva kruta sapta bhuvo dvipaha. When King Priyavrata drove his chariot behind the sun, the rims of his chariot wheels created impressions that later became 7 oceans, dividing the planetary system known as Bhumandala into 7 islands. Jambu Klaksha Shalmali Kusha Krauncha Shaka Pushkara Samjnam Stesham Parimanam Purvasmaduttara Uttaro Yatha Samkhyam Dvigunamanena Bahi Samantata Upakluptaha. The names of the islands are Jambu, Plaksha, Shalmani, Kusha, Krauncha, Shaka, Pushkara. Each island is twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance, beyond which is the next island. Ksharodhe Kshurasodha Surodha Grutodha Kshirodha Rodhada Dhimandodha Shuddodha Sapta Jaladhaya Sapta Dvipa Parikha Ivabhyantara Dvipa Samana Ekaikashyena Yatanupurvam Saptasvapi Barhirdvipeshu Prutak Paratparita Upakalpitasteshu Jamvadhishu Barhishmati Pariranuvratanat Majanagni Dhed Agni Gredmadhi Jihvaya Yajnabahu Hiranyareto Dhrutaprushta Medatithi Vitihotra Samjnan Yata Samkhyenaikaikasminnekhamevadhi Patim Vidhade. The 7 oceans respectively contain salt water, sugarcane juice, liquor, clarified butter, milk, emulsified yogurt, and sweet drinking water. All the islands are completely surrounded by these oceans, and each ocean is equal in breadth to the island it surrounds. Maharaja Priyavrata, the husband of Queen Barhishmati, gave sovereignty over these islands to their respective sons, namely Agnidhra, Idmajihva, Yajnabahu, Hiranyareta, Ghृतprashta, Medhaditi, and Vitihotra. Thus they all became kings by the order of their father. Duhitaram chorjvaswatim nameshanaste namoshanasse प्रायच्यध्यस्यामासी देवयानी नाम काव्यसुता. King Priyavrata then gave birth to his daughter. King Priyavrata then gave his daughter Urjaswati in marriage to Shukacharya, who begot in her a daughter named Devayani. नैवं विदं पुरुषकार उरुक्रमस्य पुंसां तदङ्घ्रिरजसाजितषड्गुणानां चित्रं विधूरविगतः सकृदादधीत यन्नामधेयमधुना स जहाति बन्धम्. My dear king, a devotee who has taken shelter of the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord can transcend the influence of the 6 material whips, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death, and he can conquer the mind and 5 senses. However, this is not very wonderful for a pure devotee of the Lord, because even a person beyond the jurisdiction of the 4 castes, in the other words, an untouchable, is immediately relieved of the bondage of material existence if he utters the holy name of the Lord once. Hare Krishna. However, it's not very wonderful for that. स एवमपरिमित बलपराक्रम एकदातु देवर्षिचरणानुशय नानुपतीतगुण विसर्ग संसर्गे नानिर्वृतमिवात्मानं मन्यमान आत्मनिर्वेद idamaha. While enjoying his material opulences with great strength and influence, Maharaja Priyavrata once began to consider that although he had fully surrendered to the great saint Narada and was actually on the path of Krishna consciousness, he had somehow become again entangled in material activities. Thus, in his mind, now restless, and he began to speak in the spirit of renunciation. Aho asadvanutishtam yadhabiniveshitoha mindriyairavidhara chita vishama vishayandha kupe tadala malamamushya vanitaya vinoda mrugam mam Digdigiti Garhayanchakara. The king thus began criticizing himself. Alas, how condemned I have become because of my sense gratification. I have now fallen into material enjoyment, which is exactly like a covered well. I have had enough. I am not going to enjoy any more. Just see how I have become like a dancing monkey in the hands of my wife. Because of this, I am condemned. Paradevata prasadadhi gatatma pratya vamarshena putrebhya imam yatadhayam vibhajya bhukta bhogam cha mahishim मृतकमिव सह महाविभूतिमपहाय स्वयं निहितनिर्वेदो हृदि गृहीत हरिविहारानुभावो भगवतो नारदस्य पदवीं पुनरेवानुससार. By the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaja Priyavrata reawakened to his senses. He divided all his earthly possessions amongst his obedient sons. He gave up everything, including his wife, with whom he has enjoyed so much sense gratification, and with his great and opulent kingdom, and he completely renounced all attachment. His heart, having been cleansed, became a place of pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he was able to return to the path of Krishna consciousness, spiritual life, and resume the position he had attained by the grace of the great saint Narada. Tasya hava yete shlokaha प्रियव्रतकृतं कर्म को नु कुर्याद्विनेश्वरं यो नेमि निम्न यो नेमि निम्न यो नेमि निम्नैरखरोच्चायां घ्नसप्तवा यो नेमि निम्नैरकरोच्चायां घ्नसप्तवारिधीन्. There are many famous verses according to Maharaja Priyavrata's activities. No one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could do what Maharaja Priyavrata has done. Maharaja Priyavrata dissipated the darkness of night, and with the rims of his great chariot he excavated 7 oceans. Bhusamsthanam kritam yena saridgirivanadhibihi सीमा च भूतनिर्वृत्यै द्वीपे vibhagashah. To stop the quarreling among different people, Maharaja Priyavrata marked boundaries at rivers and at edges of mountains and forests, so that no one would trespass upon another's property. Bhaumam divyam manusham cha mahitvam karmayojasam karmayogajam yaschakre nirayaupamyam purushanujanapriyah. As a great follower of and devotee of sage Narada, Maharaja Priyavrata considered hellish the opulences he had achieved by dint of fruitive activities and mystic power, whether in the lower or heavenly planetary systems or in human society. Thus ends the chapter entitled The Activities of Maharaja Priyavrata. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.